Creative Babble.
Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Xyzal. At night.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Hey guys, it's me, Javier. I am working hard on the new season of Pretend. I have lots of great stories for you, but in the meantime, I wanted to go back to an old episode, one that I haven't listened to in a long time. It's from 2018. I used to call the show Pretend Radio back then. Now I just call it Pretend, and it's called The Gambler. So this might be new to you if you haven't had the chance to dig back into the archives. There's one other thing I want to talk about. I am working on a bonus episode. It's a series I call The Sham. Every now and then I like to tell stories about real people, not these big epic con artist stories, but like you and me type of stories, the con artists in our daily lives. And if you have a story that's impacted you, but it's not this epic tale, but you think it's important, a good lesson for somebody else to listen to, send it my way. Record a voice memo and send it to Javier at pretendradio.org, and I might include it in the show. Okay, so I'm about to play the episode. It was a 2-part series. We're going to have a short break in between. Part 1 and Part 2 of The Gambler is on. Let's play the tape. On August 27, 1980, sometime after 4 a.m., a twin-engine, 6-passenger aircraft was attempting to land in heavy fog at a small airport in northern Michigan, just off the coast of Lake Huron. The fog was so dense that during its descent, the aircraft struck the top of some trees, flipped over, and crashed. Everyone on board was dead. Everyone except for a little 10-year-old boy named Alan.
He couldn't understand why they were upside down still in their seatbelts, his father and the other men, and he couldn't understand why they wouldn't help him.
This is Anita Barney. She's Alan's mother.
And he kept saying, why aren't they helping me? And he laid in the plane for 8 hours before they could even find the plane.
Eventually, the fog cleared, and the rescue party began searching for the wreckage. They found Alan, the 10-year-old little boy, badly burned and slipping in and out of consciousness. Alan and his father, Dr. Albert Valco, were on their way to go salmon fishing in Lake Huron. So when Anita Barney got a call from her ex-husband's secretary, she knew something was terribly wrong. She immediately got on a plane and flew from Columbus, Ohio, to Michigan to see her son at the hospital.
I walked in and I didn't recognize him. His face was so burned and scratched. But they kept asking about Daddy, but I couldn't answer him. So finally I went to the doctor and said, you're going to have to tell him. He was just a mess. It was just unbelievable to see this little 10-year-old boy, just a little thing. And it was so sad.
I can't even imagine a 10-year-old boy experiencing that kind of tragedy. He was shocked, depressed, broken. After the accident, all Alan could talk about was the plane crash and his father. Nothing could take his mind off of it. His grades were failing. There was nothing Anita could do to make him happy. Then one day, it all changed. There was one new thing on Alan's mind. And it was the day he met his idol, Ohio State University quarterback, Art Schlichter. Art Schlichter was at the peak of his football career when he heard about Alan's accident. A neighbor brought him over to pay Alan a visit.
He couldn't believe that his idol from Ohio State, the quarterback, came out to see him personally and give him all these items. Because he did get my son out of that depression, that I felt I owed it to him. And because nothing else was working until Art came in. When I took him to school the next day, he was talking about football and Art, meeting Art. He was no longer talking about the plane crash, and the principal called to tell me that.
Nice guy, right? Well, 30 years later, Art Schlichter will return into Anita's life. Except this time, instead of bringing gifts, he's going to destroy her life. I'm Javier Leyva, and this is Pretend Radio. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else.
Ohio State senior Art Schlichter against Stanford's junior John Elway.
There's the place kicking for OSU, and we're under.
In his sophomore year, in 1979, Art Schlichter led the Buckeyes to an undefeated regular season.
Schlichter goes back to throw it. Goes to the secondary receiver. It is complete for the first.
He was unstoppable. But by his junior year, his luck started slipping. He made a series of bad bets and lost thousands gambling on college and professional teams. Despite all that, Art Schlichter was picked 4th in the 1982 NFL draft by the Colts. While his career was picking up steam, Art was losing more and more money gambling. By mid-season, he blew his entire signing bonus. The gambling spiraled out of control. He continued to play, but his football career was essentially over. Looking back, he's considered one of the biggest draft flops in NFL history. His gambling problem got so bad that in 1995, he was sent to prison for 10 years for fraud and writing bad checks. This whole time, Art Schlichter is ruining his career, and Anita and Alan are watching from a distance. Alan's football hero turned out to be a crook. Eventually, Alan began to walk again, and his mother, Anita, married a new man.
We were inseparable. He was my life.
His name is Bob Barney, and he would eventually become the CEO of Wendy's, the popular fast food chain. Bob was basically Dave Thomas's right-hand man. He grew the fast food chain to what we know of it today. While Dave Thomas was the face of Wendy's, Bob was the guy that dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. In fact, he was one of the pioneers of the drive-through window. He earned millions, a fortune that allowed him and Anita to travel the world, host lavish dinner parties, and give away millions to charity.
We built my mother a home. We helped other people buy homes. We bought cars for people through college. My husband was very generous, and so was Dave Thomas. They both knew where they came from, and they didn't forget that. And I was the same way.
They lived the perfect life for 23 years, until Anita learned she had cancer and had to have an emergency hysterectomy. That was on Monday. On Tuesday, while visiting Anita at the hospital, Bob, her husband, starts complaining that he was in pain. On Thursday, they discharged Anita from the hospital.
He came to get me. He said, my back's still hurting. And I said, well, why don't you go to urgent care? Take me home. And he did. He went to urgent care. They did some x-rays and said, you're going to have to go to the hospital tomorrow for some CAT scans.
The next day, Bob goes to the hospital, and when he returns home, he sits down and says,
well, I have the big C. And I said, oh, no, you don't. Bob, don't joke about that. He says, Anita, I do. And he was full of cancer.
They hopped on the Wendy's corporate jet and flew him to the hospital in Columbus, Ohio.
The following day, they opened him up to do some surgery and closed him right back up because he was full of cancer. So he died 3 months later. He was trying to teach me so much before he died. And one of the things, now you got to make sure the oils are okay in the car and these different things, and how to change a filter. Just all these different things to do. And it was really sad. We sit at the kitchen table and we would just hold each other. Yeah. And sitting in the kitchen chairs, we pulled real close and we'd hold each other and we'd just cry and cry. We couldn't help it. Yeah. And he said to me one time, and I love what he said to me. He says, "You know what I'm going to miss most? I'm going to miss you so much." And it was just heartbreaking.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
When he was dying, he was giving me all these instructions, and one of them was, do not let a man come into your life and take all your money. I says, well, I would never do that. And that's, the story.
Yeah. Don't let a man come into your life and take all your money. I want to stop here and tell you how the story ends. It ends with Anita losing every single penny her husband left her. She lost everything. She didn't even have money to pay her light bill. Remember Art Schlichter, the disgraced Ohio State quarterback who went to jail for gambling? Well, he's back and out of jail. And it's been nearly 30 years since he first met Anita. And Alan, her 10-year-old son, is now 40. So, how did it happen? How was Art Schlichter able to drain Anita's bank accounts? And most importantly, why did she allow him to do it? Here's how it happened. After prison, Art says he was a new man. In fact, he was campaigning around the state asking people to vote against the legalization of casinos in Ohio. He says gambling ruins lives. One day, he was speaking at Anita's church promoting his new book. Anita caught up with him after his speech.
Art, and I said, you don't remember me, but then I told him who I was. He said, oh, I do remember you now. How is Alan doing? And I said, well, he's doing well, and I'm having a surprise 40th birthday party. Would you like to come? And he said, well, yeah, that would be good. I would like to do that and surprise him.
Anita gave Art her phone number. A few days later, Art calls and says,
I would love to come, but I can't. But he says, I'd like to get together and get caught up on how Alan's doing and everybody's doing. I said, sure, that'd be fine.
He shows up at Anita's house with a bag full of Wendy's, and they have lunch.
And that's how everything started.
It didn't take long for Art to make his move. Before they were even done with their sandwich, he was giving Anita a sob story about his daughters.
How he'd lost their relationship because he'd been in prison for 10 years. He wanted to reestablish a relationship with them, but he had a problem. So he said, I need a car that'll get me to Carmel, Indiana, to establish a relationship with my daughter. So could I borrow about $10,000? Well, I was surprised, believe me, that he even asked. That he just met me and he's asking me for money. And I totally was surprised, but I didn't know what to say. I just stammered around and I said yes.
While this may seem like a ridiculous request, Anita had the means. Plus, when her husband Bob was alive, they helped people all the time. Art's promise to repay the loan seems sincere, and for Anita, $10,000 is a drop in the bucket. Why wouldn't she help out the man who brought her 10-year-old son back when nothing else worked?
And I just put myself in his place, and I remembered my son, how sad he was. So I don't know how to explain it, except it was because he did get my son out of that depression that I felt I owed it to him, and because nothing else was working until Art came in.
Art promised to pay back the $10,000 loan within 90 days. In fact, he wrote Anita a post-dated check for $10,000. The next week, he asked to meet Anita again. This time, he asked her for $100,000. He said the money would go to pay off some debts he owed other gamblers. He promised to repay the loan with 10% interest. After thinking about it for a few minutes, Anita agreed to loan him the money. It has now been 2 years since Anita's husband passed away. Art and Anita became quick friends. I mean, he's charming, funny. Despite his tarnished reputation, he's still a local celebrity. And so I think that the next thing that people are going to wonder about, was there a romantic relationship?
There was not a romantic relationship. There was the caring.
Well, there was this one time after visiting the Columbus Zoo.
And just sitting there talking, and then that's when he became aggressive or friendly, and I started to respond.
Art made a move on her.
Things didn't work out well. I realized what was going on, and I said, I don't know where he travels to.
In other words, she doesn't know who he slept with. She said nothing happened. Did you trust him?
Well, he seemed to be, except for the fact that he had been to prison.
Right, he seemed to have turned that leaf. I mean, he was trying to stop the casinos. He started going to church. I mean, he seemed like he changed, right?
Well, yes, we all believed every word he said. He talked about being in prison and how terrible it was. And
it's been a few months since they reconnected, and so far he's borrowed more than $200,000. But he was making small payments towards his debt, so she continued to play along. At first, it started out as personal loans, but eventually, his requests became frenzied and demanding. Anita soon lost track of how much money she loaned him. Before she knew it, most of her money was gone.
It wasn't too long when he started getting very aggressive.
He said he needed money to repay some really bad people who promised to hurt him if he didn't pay back the money.
He's screaming at me.
This is a real recording of Art and Anita talking on the phone.
I'm tired right now. I'll just take a break and just disappear.
Well, that would be real sweet of you for all that I've done for you.
Screaming at me. I'm trying to get this done, and you've got to work with me. So I never come and say, take money, get money, nothing like that.
He felt that I was going to be out of there. I didn't want to go anywhere because I wanted to get my money back. So I was afraid that he would leave because he used to say, if you don't do this, I am going to leave town. You'll never see the money again.
So, what was Art doing with all her money? He was gambling it all away in hopes to repay other debts. This is Art talking to authorities.
I paid back all this debt. Do you think it is safe to say that you got over $1 million from Anita Barney? Probably. Maybe more.
The detectives asked him, when all this started, with borrowing money from Anita, realistically, did you ever have any intentions of paying her back? Art Schlichter said, absolutely. Always. I have given her money back. When it started, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. Around this time, what is the status of your finances? What's happening with your bank account now? Because he has you, right? He keeps asking for money. He keeps paying you a little bit here. But what's happening with your bank account?
I don't have much money then. I had to ask him for money to pay the electricity, all the utilities. I was begging for money to pay the taxes because I didn't want to lose my home. And I was begging. So he would have to give me the money to pay all those. And I don't know where he was getting it, but he gave it to me.
At any point in time, did you say, this is getting ridiculous? I had millions of dollars and now I'm struggling to pay the light bill. Why didn't you just say no at that point? What kept you from saying no?
I just needed my money back. I couldn't let my family know what had happened. And that's what kept me going. That's why I kept thinking, it's got to end. He's saying it's going to end.
But it would never end. By now, Anita is completely broke. Art Schlichter has sucked her bank account dry. You would think at this point he would move on to his next victim, but he doesn't, because what happens next is completely insane. Instead of rebuilding her life, Anita goes from being the victim of his con to an accomplice. What does she do? She starts stealing money from her friends. She rips them off. Here's detectives talking to Art Schlichter.
Let me ask you this. These people that she contacted, are these just random people?
They're friends.
Or just...
These people she contacted, were they just random people or friends? Art says, they're friends.
Friends. I mean, basically take a list of friends and let's call this guy.
That's it.
Okay. Was that at your direction or is that who she wanted?
No,
The detective asked, was that at your direction or is that something she wanted?
Oh, the sick day struggle is real. But with Dimetapp, it doesn't have to be. Children's Dimetapp works quickly to soothe multiple bothersome cough, cold, and allergy symptoms in a single dose. Our fast-acting formulas are designed with kids in mind, so they get everything they need and nothing they don't. Available in liquid and on-the-go chewable tablets. Tap the banner now to shop at Amazon and say goodbye to the sick day struggle with Dimetapp. Use as directed.
You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NYLife Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Last time on Pretend Radio, Anita Barney told us how she went from being the wife of a Wendy CEO to becoming broke and struggling to pay her light bill. She remembers her late husband's advice.
When he was dying, he was giving me all these instructions, and one of them was, do not let a man come into your life and take all your money. I said, well, I would never do that. And that's, you know the story.
Yeah. Do not have a man come into your life and take all your money. She fell victim to a swindler, Art Schlichter. It started out with a small favor.
So he said, I need a car that'll get me to Carmel, Indiana, to establish a relationship with my daughter. So could I borrow about $10,000? Well, I was surprised, believe me, that he even asked, that he just met me and he's asking me for money. And I totally was surprised, but I didn't know what to say. I just stammered around and I said yes.
Then it led her to losing her entire fortune. But instead of calling the cops or telling her family what was going on, she kept up the facade of being a millionaire.
I just needed my money back. I couldn't let my family know what had happened, and that's what kept me going. I kept thinking, it's got to end. He's saying it's going to end.
But it's never going to end. In fact, it's only going to get worse. Today, we're going to talk about why Anita turned to her friends and scammed them out of their life savings. So why would she do it? Why would she get her friends wrapped up in this mess? The answer? It's not easy to understand. I'm Javier Leyva, and this is Pretend Radio. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else. You may be asking yourself, where is Anita's son, Alan? Doesn't he suspect his mother's life is spiraling out of control? How was she able to keep this secret for so long? Well, eventually Alan realized something was wrong, and he flew down to where Anita was living to confront her in person. She assured him that everything was all right. She made a short-term loan to Art and that he would repay her by the end of the month. There was nothing to worry about. Remember how this all started. At first, Art asked Anita for a personal loan. 10 grand here, 10 grand there. It was always 10 grand. Even when he asked her for hundreds of thousands of dollars, he made her break it up into $10,000 chunks. Any larger, and it could raise suspicion. These loan requests piled up and got out of control. That was his first tactic. After he drained Anita's funds, it was time to change things up. His next scheme was selling Ohio State football season tickets. Art asked Anita,
and he said, do you have any friends that need tickets, but they can't get any? I said, well, I don't know that. I don't know. He said, why don't you call and ask around?
Some of Anita's friends couldn't get tickets and they were kind of excited. And I know what you're thinking, but everyone who purchased tickets actually got tickets. At face value, too.
He did not charge them a penny more.
The problem is, the tickets weren't always together. They were scattered throughout the stadium. So what was Art's interest in selling these season tickets? Well, he would take the pre-sale money from the season tickets and gamble it all away in hopes to grow the money. But by the time football season came around, Art lost all the money and would have to buy overpriced tickets from a ticket broker to make good on his promise. He was losing money on the deal. And it also explains why the tickets were so randomly scattered throughout the stadium. What a mess. So I guess that was a scam, but all things considered, nobody was harmed. The next scam would set off a chain of events that nobody could undo. Art mentions that he knows a person and can get Super Bowl tickets for $1,100 apiece. Anita calls a few friends and offers them tickets. Super Bowl tickets. Heck yeah, her friends are in. She collects almost $20,000 for 18 tickets. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Anita's struggling to pay her bills. She asks Art for money. Anita recalls him becoming more and more aggressive and paranoid. He says, ask me about the money one more time and I'll disappear and you'll never get the money.
He had people watching me, following me. He knew where I was all the time. He'd say, well, where'd you go today? I just hung around the condo. He said, no, you didn't. You went here, you went there.
Art began to ask Anita about getting short-term loans for her friends. He said he would pay them back with high interest. She said she saw Art come through with the Ohio State tickets. Sort of. And he was slowly repaying some of the loans she made to him. So she said she felt comfortable letting her friends make a little money off of these short-term loans. I mean, what could go wrong, right? But Anita didn't feel comfortable asking friends for money. She resisted calling her friends, and he would get angry. Anita recalls one day when they were both sitting in the car, when Art opens up Anita's address book.
He'd tell me to call somebody, and I wouldn't do it. I mean, I'm crying, I'm begging. I'm not just sitting there. I'm crying, I'm begging. I get out of the car and walk away, and he cussed me out. And then I had to get back in the car. It was my car. He got into my car, and he would take the phone book and just sit down and start calling people and then hand me the phone. He'd tell me what to say.
He dials a random number.
I was calling people that I hadn't talked to in years. They still were in my phone book, but he was dialing these numbers. And I hadn't talked to them in years, and I'm not exaggerating.
The phone starts ringing. Anita's voice is shaky. She makes some small talk and then starts explaining the nature of the investment. She goes on and on. Finally, the person on the other end interrupts her. The answer is no. What do you think I am, a bank? He hangs up. Art yells at her, that was terrible. You'll need to practice. She tried again. Next, Anita calls a different friend. This time, she had a script. Art was furious. Anita remembers him screaming, damn it, you can't just read the effing thing, you have to act like you actually mean it. Art picked up the phone again and started dialing. Eventually, her sales pitch got better.
The plan was 3 to 4 weeks, they get their money back with 10% interest, is what Art told me to tell them. And they were all excited about it, just as I was, because I believed it was going to happen.
Soon, she got $90,000 from her friend the Nesbitts, $30,000 from her personal trainer, $20,000 from another friend, $10,000 from her housekeeper's mother, $10,000 from a former school teacher. You see, not all these people were millionaires. These were hardworking people putting their life savings on the line. I know this sounds crazy, but remember, friends don't know she's broke. As far as they know, she's still a millionaire. She's simply offering them an opportunity to make money. But months go by and no one's getting their money. Her housekeeper's mother writes her and asks, how can you easily betray years of friendship and service? People were angry.
They weren't getting their money back, right? Or did he ever repay some of those loans?
He did, but most of them were just calling morning, noon, and night, because there was a date, like 1 week, and then I'd call and say, well, there's a problem, it'll be another week. It just kept dragging it out, and then they would get more angry, and then they'd say, we'll give them more interest if they can just wait another month. And sure, that's fine. They were excited about it. I was too.
Yeah.
And then when they started calling and saying, well, leaving messages.
Anita wouldn't pick up the phone. It was too much for her to bear.
We are going to the police, say 6 o'clock. I don't have the money.
But after a few months, friends and family started to suspect something was really wrong. Why was Anita so withdrawn? Why was she calling people asking for money? The walls were closing in on her.
I just started thinking about, how could this person control me like this and destroy me and my friends like this? It's just got to stop. I just remember thinking, it's got to stop. I don't care what happens to me. I fell to my knees and I said, God, I thought I could do this on my own. I can't. I turned my life over to you. And I remember thinking, I don't care if I go to jail. I don't care what happens. I've got to stop him. This can't go on.
Anita recalls driving to her husband's gravesite. She says she stayed in her car and pulled a pistol out of her purse.
I remember going to the cemetery, my husband's gun, and this is the only way I can get out of this situation and to get away from Art. There's no other way. So I took the gun, and I was sitting in the car, and I'm crying, and I'm praying, and asking God to forgive me, but I don't know what else to do.
Then, her cell phone rings. It was her son, Alan, and he wants to know where she is.
He said, Mom, where are you? And he's on his way to the cemetery.
But by the time Alan arrives, Anita's gone.
Well, I left because I didn't want to see the gun.
Although Alan didn't know exactly what was going on, he knew Art was involved somehow. If suicide wasn't an option, then the only remaining thing to do was call the authorities. She told them everything. She didn't even have an attorney present. She could face some serious jail time for her involvement in all this. The detectives gave Anita a tape recorder so she could document her conversations with Art.
I'm scared to death, though, I'm telling you. He just has to have something to show his wife, all right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all he has to do. Get in your car right now, okay? You know, let me tell you something. If Fernando is an asshole, his wife is a bitch. Fernando's a good guy. His wife wants him to hurt you and me. If Fernando comes out on us, then they'll all come out on you, okay? And they'll kill us.
Oh, God.
You are a rich woman in most people's eyes, all right?
Yes. Art, please don't make me do this. I can't do this anymore.
You know what? We have to do this today. We have to take Fernando. Write the checks. They'll never be cashed, okay?
Oh, Art, I'm going to get in trouble for all these bounced checks.
I'm not going to let you get in trouble for bounced checks.
But wait, remember the Super Bowl tickets? Well, people started asking when they would get their tickets. Art tells Anita to say they will be ready in 3 to 4 days, but the tickets never came. Now it's Sunday, 7 days until the Super Bowl. Art promises to have the tickets by Tuesday morning. It's now Monday, and people are planning to travel to Dallas for the Super Bowl. Except, they still don't have their tickets. Art says he needs to drive to Indianapolis to get the tickets, but there's a bad storm coming. Five more days till Super Bowl Sunday. The pressure is building. Anita tells Art that people are calling wanting their tickets or their money back. Art tells her that he may not have the tickets until the next day. The weather in Indianapolis is a mess. He says, "Don't worry, they're going to have their tickets. Just tell them to go ahead and make the trip." Art says he'll overnight them. Anita tells him they're going to go to the police. Art says, "The police? Super Bowl hasn't even started yet." But it was too late. The press picked up the story, and they were camping outside of Anita's house. There were no Super Bowl tickets. It's now Sunday, and Art calls Anita. He tells her he's going to turn himself in and confess everything. He tells her to be safe, take care, and that he loves her. In an interview with detectives, Art had this to say. He told police, and I quote, "You know, I want to tell you something about Anita Barney. I love Anita Barney. She did more to help me than any person in this whole world would ever do, 10 times. She's a great woman. She deserves better. I hope nobody charges her with anything. If you want to place it on me, you can. That's who deserves it." Art Schlichter pled guilty to 1 count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. That's a first-degree felony. And 12 counts of felony theft, a total of 39 years. As you can imagine, Anita wasn't his only victim. He had many. It's just that she was the most vulnerable. It's hard to believe that all this took place in less than 16 months. Anita Barney filed for bankruptcy. But what about her part in this crime? Well, she eventually hired an attorney, and he negotiated her full cooperation in exchange for a guilty plea that did not include jail time. But Anita's greatest punishment was seeing her world collapse.
People were shunning me. I was so shunned. I still am to this day. But I hold my head up finally because I didn't do it intentionally with a terrible heart and mind. I did it, but not because I'm a thief or anything. And I know the circumstances I was in. I didn't know how to get out of it. I'm just a victim. And I still have trouble living with myself sometimes. I think about it and I feel so bad. But I don't know what else to do now, but just keep going forward. And I don't go around a lot of people. I still stay kind of isolated. And I think people are always talking about me, and there's that woman. And I just feel very depressed about it. I lost more than money. I lost friendships. I lost family. And I lost everything material-wise. My home, I love my home. It's gone. My cars are gone. I've had 2 auctions to get rid of everything because I had to. So I've lost everything, literally. But I do have God in my life now, and I'm comfortable. And I don't go around preaching, but God is my friend now, and I just feel His arms around me all the time. And I'm very satisfied right now.
Anita says she's devoting the rest of her life to try to repay her debts. She wrote a book titled Quarterback Sneak, Exposing the Criminal Game Plan of Art Schlichter. She wants the proceeds to go directly to her victims. You know, she took the time to talk with me because she hopes that someone out there is listening, and she would like her story to eventually become a movie. She says even if she's gone, she wants to make sure that she could pay back the money she has taken. You can find Quarterback Sneak on Amazon or your local bookstore. All right, that was it for The Gambler. Remember, if you have a story about a narcissist or somebody who's been very controlling in your life, somebody who wore a mask and revealed their true selves to you, send me a voice memo. I would love to hear it. Who knows? Your story could help somebody else. All right, that's it for today. We'll be back real soon. Take care.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
Creative Babble.